All right, guys, welcome back. So we are live. We are doing this. Today we have Brandon with Olde Raleigh Distillery, and we are going to talk about his whole process and this amazing whiskey that I have in front of me that we're going to sample, and we're going to just talk about the whole thing about Olde Raleigh and what we're doing there. So, welcome, Brandon.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, but so we were talking off camera a little bit about kind of what you were all about. So let's just basically jump right into that, because I said don't say any more. This is gold. We want to record this. So tell us kind of what you guys are all about, and then we're going to dip into this whiskey, which I'm so excited. I've been holding on to this for months, not in waiting for you, but it seems like it's a sweet symphony here now that we have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how the distillery got started.
Sure. Well, again, Brandon McCraney. I'm the owner and the whiskey blender at Olde Raleigh Distillery. My passion is quite simply blending whiskey, and so we 100% family owned and operated. I saved up the old-fashioned way about 17 years, just nickel and diamond, till finally I saved up enough to chase my dream and take the leap. And the dream started in 2017, ultimately took the leap in 2019. And then we were scheduled to open in April of 2020, which is probably the worst of the last 100 years.
Absolutely.
Way. Ultimately wound up opening in January 2021, still during COVID, but we were able to open, which was a blessing for me. We specialize in blending whiskey. Our flagship is bourbon, and so I view, in terms of how we make and blend bourbon, the entire U.S. is our canvas for hand selecting barrels, mash bills, different ages. Different regions they're aged. We bring them to North Carolina at Olde Raleigh to continue to age. We use an élevage, which is a traditional brandy aging technique, philosophy towards aging the barrels. And ultimately, my job here is in the barrel room, sampling those barrels on a routine basis. Kind of view that back area as a big spice rack, and that's my pantry, and I'm trying to figure out which spices I want to package together for our next small batch or our next limited release, which we do some cask finishes and things such as that. Right. Where we're a little bit different, let's say, than some of the bigger brands out there is that I want to, and showcase in the art of blending, to give you a quality product, but in showcase in the art of blending, we want those batches to pop a little bit differently from batch to batch. And then if you follow the brand, we inform you on here's what we did, or here is the whiskey of that batch that ultimately was like the flavor bomb that maybe we took as the main singer, and we put a supporting cast around it. And so that's what we do here.
Wow. That's amazing to me. And you're also, not to toot your own horn, you're also a level 4 whiskey sommelier. Is that correct?
I am, yeah. It's a great community.
Absolutely. And so I've had quite a few sommeliers on at this point, and it's one of the things that I put myself in there, obviously, we strive for is to create the best product that we can out of what we have. And so I feel like you guys are really doing that with the product that you're producing and the product we're fixing to open. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. So tell us a little bit about North Carolina, for one, because that's not huge for bourbon, is it?
No, it was huge for alcohol before Prohibition. Okay. They did up until recently, they really haven't done a lot of legislation to bring us back to what pre-prohibition days were. So it's not too long ago here, several years ago, you couldn't even buy a bottle at a distillery. Then once they did pass a law, it was 1 bottle per calendar year. And if you were to come in, I'd have to write down your driver's license number. And so they would come in and they check your logs to see, how often you're selling, someone like yourself a bottle. Right. And not be, 10 months apart. It better be 12 months in one day. They then upgraded that to 6 bottles a year, which makes no sense because nobody buys 6 packs of liquor. They buy 6 packs of beer. But if you're in this industry, you see constantly there's all kinds of cross-contamination of beer to wine to liquor that just doesn't make any sense. And for the most part, liquor tends to be on the short end of the stick, especially in the state. But yeah, we've done a lot the last few years in terms of bringing up the legislation to help the consumer base and the distiller. I benefited from that in 2019, which ultimately allowed for me to make this leap full-time and not just do it part-time. And that was allowed for tasting rooms in North Carolina at a distillery. You can have a mixed beverage, a wine, and a beer permit.
Okay.
So, and the significance of that is if you were to come here, I can basically be a full functioning bar.
Right.
And so we got to benefit from that because at the time when we opened, I'm in a suburb of Raleigh, Zebulon, North Carolina. There really wasn't anything around here that fit that bill. So we got to benefit from that. Then the other benefit was now you can come to a distillery in North Carolina and buy bottles 7 days a week, and there's no cap on the number of bottles that you can buy, which has been a blessing for us as well.
Amen. That's amazing because here in Texas there's still a 4-bottle minimum, maximum. Where you go to a distillery. So if I wanted to go to Iron Root Distillery, which is happening this year, guys, I promise. If I wanted to go to make the trek to Iron Root, I could only buy 4 bottles. Which it's better than 2. That's what it used to be, 2 bottles per 30 days. But at the same time, like, everybody, including yourself, it has a special release bottle, a distillery only bottle, a cast strength version, all these things. And it's like, I don't just want your basic, small batch or whatever you call it. Like, I want to have the gamut because if I'm making the trek up there, I want to be able to have all the things. So it's really nice that they kind of changed the way that they were doing their law to where now you can serve as many bottles as you want, which is really great. It's really great.
Yeah, I feel very blessed, especially on Sundays, because the only place you can buy a liquor bottle in North Carolina is at a distillery. I call it like the reverse Chick-fil-A problem. Not sure if you have Chick-fil-A down there, but
we do.
It's on Sundays and they're never open. So
yeah, absolutely, yes. Okay, so I am sitting here staring at this beautiful bottle. I don't know if you guys can see it out on camera, but this is probably one of the most ornate bottles other than the Old Fitzgerald maybe, but we might be getting into that. I want to dip this thing open, and you told me that the one that I have is batch 10, and you said that was one of your favorite batches. So talk about that a little bit. I'm cracking it open.
Okay, and I'm going to join you, my friend.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So yeah, that was a 10th release of our small batch bourbon. On the label, you'll notice it says blended bourbon whiskey, but it's actually a blend of just straight bourbons. The reason that I put blended bourbon whiskey is because I really wanted to highlight the fact that our brand showcases blending. And so there's no light whiskey in there. It's all straight bourbon. The source is 93 proof. Sources on this: Wyoming, Indiana, Tennessee. It's a 4-grain bourbon, so corn, barley, rye, and wheat. The ages on this blend 4, 6, 10, and 18 years old. And we do some different things with this. Sometimes we'll send barrels to different locations. So the Wyoming, we sent down to Colorado for a couple years, and then ultimately Indiana, Tennessee, Wyoming, we brought them Colorado, Indiana, Tennessee, we brought to North Carolina to continue aging. But let's go ahead and hit at it if you like.
Absolutely. Let's launch it. Oh, man. What have I been doing with my life? Seriously, that thing's been sitting there for this long? What am I doing? Oh, man.
I get a nice leathery note, an unsweet tea note on this. And the beauty about blending it is you can kind of see all the ingredients come together and what gave you that specific piece. We blend, and in particular our brand, when we talk, this batch here was I think 9 barrels.
Oh, wow.
So we do really like single digit type batches. And so with that though, if you got a very flavorful barrel, which not all barrels are created equal, it can really stand out, and you can round out the rest of a batch to complement it. This one in particular, the feature barrel was a 10-year wheated bourbon that from Wyoming, spent a lot of time in Colorado. But those are very mild climates. When they come to North Carolina, they've never found, or they never experienced the southeastern heat. So those barrels start to evolve so much more. And as a blender, those are like my little surprises. I get to see, okay, from spring rolling into summer, how much is this going to evolve? That one in particular, these very nice tobacco leathery notes just started to emerge on it once it hit from 9 rolling into 10 years old. So I decided to wrap everything around that particular barrel.
Yeah. And you get that, like with wheated whiskeys, and this might have been one of your tasting notes from the Somm class. I don't remember, but you get that like Whopper malt ball type taste. You get, it's very subtle, like it's covered with leather, that's a weird tasting note, but like it's covered with that leather tobacco-y note, but like you get that in there with the wheat, which is, I mean, man, this is an amazing blend, which, not trying to toot your own horn over there, you know what you're doing, but like,
thank you.
But yeah, no, it's, I mean, the fact that you put which a lot of times when you're blending, you're putting old stock with new stock, which I totally understand, but like you went pretty old with some of that stock, that 18-year-old, like it just gave it some complexity and some backbone. I feel it's very, very unique. It's unlike any whiskey that I've had, really.
Well, we want to give you something different, and also, we're at a premium price point. Oftentimes, folks that don't know our brand is like, oh, because they're craft and their overhead's high. I'm like, no, we got really old juice, and those barrels are expensive, and there's not much in them. So in order to create a blend that's unique, you're going to have to, and not give you a 2 or 3 year product that's rushed to market.
Right.
You're going to pay for some of that. But every one of my labels have my name on it, and if I want to put my name behind a label, and feel proud about that, then it's got to meet a certain criteria, for sure.
I mean, okay, so, and we're not going to geek out on this for the rest of the podcast, because that gets old news real fast. But I can taste the Tennessee in there as well. Like it has this subtleness and this, I don't know, like this really nice, like, I hate to say velvetyness to it. But then it's like being backboned by that malt ball with leather. Like it's just a very, like I could sit with this for a couple of hours and just smell it and taste it while watching a movie or listening to music outside now we're getting into some springtime, so it's we want to be sitting outside, letting the dogs run around and do the thing, watching the kids play in the yard. This would be a perfect porch sitting whiskey. So yeah, I mean, to me, this is right where I want it to be.
Yeah, I like a whiskey that talks back to me. And this one, when I have it, I get the leather on the palate, that unsweet tea. On the finish, though, I get these hints of citrus. Brack's hot cinnamon candies that kind of talk to me with tobacco. Right. My marker for rye in a bourbon is various spectrums of cinnamon candies. Everyone's different and tasting is subjective. But for me, that's my marker when I went, okay. And then I just rolled back to my Rolodex of memories of trick-or-treating when my father's in the military growing up on base housing. And it's okay. Is it those red hot candies, that come to life right when you try them, or, the atomic fireballs that you hang on for about 20 seconds and you get this nice cinnamon sugary thing that kind of lingers.
Right.
That's where my Rolodex of memories will go to when I'm talking about rye in particular with a bourbon.
Right. And which is so weird because when I talk about rye, it turns into like almost like a sappy, maybe wicker furniture type note, which, difference of opinion, I guess, but like almost that Pier 1 Imports like potpourri type thing, which is so cool. Because like now I'm gonna try and pick out that Atomic Fireball out of there, because I do get a lot of cinnamon as well with a rye whiskey, but like, or with a high rye bourbon or whatever, I do get a lot of cinnamon. But this one to me is coming across really, really nice. And I mean, I'm not going to make you give me the mash bill of every one, because I'm sure that would be a pain in the butt. But is it a high rye mash bill, or, I mean, besides the wheated, obviously?
No, 21. Well, I can disclose one source. That's MGP.
Mm-hmm.
I really love their 21%, especially if I can get 6 years and older. I really like the mouthfeel on that one. And it's just it's a solid whiskey. And you can, if you get a good lot of that, you can build a lot of things. Like I call it springing off a platform. Just give you a nice base that just gives you a nice oily whiskey, like a warm blanket over the tongue. And then you can accentuate it with different things. And that's how I approach a lot of the blends that we bring for our small batch bourbon anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the legs on it are just running down to glass, which I know that the legs don't really mean anything. It could be my glass is freaking dirty. Who knows? Of course, this is the Magnificent Bastard glass. I had to do the Magnificent Bastard glass for you. But it's one of those things like where when you're drinking, especially a blended whiskey, where it comes from, and I hate to say it like that, but like when it comes from multiple sources, like I try to pinpoint, okay, this is the Tennessee, this is the MGP. Do you do that as well? And do you try to like pinpoint that as well?
With the blend that I have?
Yeah, with your own blend. Or do you try to see if it's more to make it more cohesive? Because is it just me nerding out on it and trying to pinpoint those things since you told me? Or are you trying to make a cohesive unit?
Well, definitely given your background, you're drawn to nerd out, right? So
absolutely.
From my end, I think it just depends on the goal of what I have for that particular batch. Like we went from this one, which I said more aged wheat forward. Our next one was a lot more rye forward, a lot more spice, kind of jumped on the palate, and then this one. But that's what it's all about, is we want to make sure we're giving you a contrast batch to batch, because we want to hit a wide audience and let even the beginner just getting into whiskey be able to notice a subtle difference. They may interpret it a different way, but especially when they come and visit here, and we can talk a little bit of, okay, well, which one do you prefer over another? Because that's another thing with our batches. You should like one more than the other, because your palate's going to be drawn to maybe something more, wheated on the palate versus rye, or maybe vice versa. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's the cool thing about doing blending, is like this batch can be like this, and then this batch can be like this. It doesn't have to be like, you're not making Jim Beam, which is Jim Beam from the beginning to the end. You're making this batch. And so like, it's almost like a Pokemon game where you're like, I got to collect them all type thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've had several customers that have came into every one of our releases, and they just got a big row of our stuff, which is pretty humbling and flattering.
Absolutely. I mean, guys, could you see like 10 of these bottles, or 14, whatever you guys have out now, of just sitting on the wall? I mean, that to me is, that if you want a tater wall, that's your tater wall right there. Just those amazing bottles. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, were you always into whiskey, or did this just come up?
This was like a snowball that's grown over time. All right. I get asked all the time, hey, was it in your genes and all this other garbage that, that stuff you see out there? I'm the antithesis of what a distillery blending operation should be. All right. We didn't grow up with alcohol in my family at all.
Absolutely.
My mother, reason for that, one of her earliest memories was my great-great-grandmother was basically the head of what was equivalent of like the Women's Christian League in North Carolina. And she crusaded around the state talking about the evils of alcohol and how it's going to split your family up and all those things. I never knew this either. It was just like, all right, alcohol is taboo. College kind of revolted a little bit, but was your typical broke college Beast Light cases for $9.99 guy.
Absolutely.
If you had a shot, it was whatever that special was, a Jack Daniels on a Saturday night at your local bar.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't until I got a little older, got into whiskey, I just took a keen interest in it. I thought it was fascinating, especially the aging, the maturation process. And it was just this thing that was accumulating on the side. And while that was going on, I had this corporate career that things were going fantastic. Finally got that interim national VP title I always thought I wanted. And it turns out it was just an empty check the box, which found out being a blessing for me. Because this thing had been growing to the point where I thought, well, maybe I should take the leap and do this. And luckily, I'd been saving enough, and I think I'd matured enough professionally as well as personally to be able to handle this type of transition with, I got, wife and kids. And so I did. It was 2019. I took the leap, and never been more stressed, but I've never been happier. I feel blessed being doing what I'm doing every day. So. Absolutely.
And let me tell you this, and this is no shade on you at all. You're creating an excellent product. And I'm not just saying that because you're my buddy and because you're a fellow whiskey somm or anything like that. This to me is so unique and so different than just I'm gonna put you against like Barrel or somebody like that, like where they're doing all of these things and like, they're finishing everything in all these weird casts, but like, is it good whiskey to begin with? And so let's talk about some of you guys' finishes, because I know you have a cigar batch, you have a honey finish, which I'm really excited about.
Yes, we've got 3. We're known for 3 cask finishes. And the interesting part about each of those casks and in owning everything, if I got a rabbit hole I want to go down, I've got nobody telling me I can't do it. And so that's our first cask finish was a honey barrel or honey cask finish bourbon. And how that started was I met the beekeeper that we work with, Steve and Shannon Baxter, at a farmer's market a couple years ago. And my background on honey was, I don't know what your local middle of the tier grocery store is where you can get that $1.50 plastic bear of honey that you thought was honey. That's what I thought honey was. That's not real honey. No, so I discovered what real honey was at a farmer's market, and these beekeepers had like 8 different varieties of honey. And I'm like, 8 varieties of honey? How does that work? And they were, here's a local wildflower, here's a sourwood, here's this, here's that. All tasted subtly or radically different.
Right.
And similar to how whiskey could taste different. Right. And I went, wow, this is really fascinating. I knew that bourbon and honey were a great pair. I said, look, we've got to do a collaboration. So I tell you what, if you would, I gave them a flavor profile of a blend that I was going to create of bourbon. I said, could you give me some honey that might complement that? I said, yeah, sure. So they came in with 40 gallons in 5-gallon buckets of different honey from around the state, of which they were pulled directly from the hive. So they were just raw and gritty and just all the yumminess. We had just dumped barrels from our latest small batch, so they were still fresh. We put honey in those barrels. And then we spent about a month rolling those barrels up and down the production floor. Honey is a humectant. That means it pulls moisture out of everything. So it pulls all the residual bourbon out of the barrel. We only do it a month because we found if we do it longer than that, the honey will actually over dry the barrel. And then when I go to, it's not a good situation. Yeah. So we harvest that. It's a bourbon barrel aged honey that the Baxters now sell all over the state. It's a really, really solid product. There's always some residual honey left in there. We let gravity do its thing, but you're going to have some staying in there just a little bit. We'll put bourbon back in there. And if we let Mother Nature and time do its thing, the complexities of that honey that's just directly from the hive would adhere themselves to the whiskey. And so that was 2.5 years ago. We did that just as I was interested in it. We could do one-off release. Sold out just about immediately. And I went, well, that was fun. Let's move on to the next thing. We started getting orders around the state for this product that I never was going to do again. I think around 175, if I'm not mistaken, orders. And it was what we realized, it was the beekeeping community. North Carolina has one of the most vibrant beekeeping communities in the country.
Really? Okay.
And they'd come to Zeb. They're like, man, those Baxters, because they all know each other. we're working with this crazy guy out in Zebulon making this product. Come check it out. And I tell them what we did. The number one comment we get was, this doesn't taste sweet like two of the very big branded honey flavored products. And the reason for that, from learning with beekeepers, is that really honey isn't sweet unless you pasteurize it, which is when it becomes that, you heat it up and basically becomes that big bulk produced plastic bear that we have food line at our local supermarket. So it doesn't taste like that. It's got complexities to it. And we want it being a statewide product a year later. Had you told me when I opened this is going to be a thing, I'm like, no way. But there's a lot with our story that had you told me 4 or 5 years ago this was going to be a thing. We opened during COVID, for example. Folks are like, what's your 5-year plan? I was like, my 1 month plan was to play the natural gas bill. All right. It's during COVID. I hope somebody shows up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's that was our first one. We've got a coffee cask finished bourbon that's basically the same process as honey, except I work with a local coffee roaster because I got interested in roasting coffee beans. And with each batch, none of these batches are going to be the same. What we do is we highlight different beans for the cask finish for the coffee. It tends to be more of an annual release. We roll it out more than colder months as opposed to the heat of the summer.
Right. And
then our most popular cask finish certainly right now is what we call Old Stogie. It is a bourbon, a blend of straight bourbon that's we finished in Armagnac and Tawny Port casks. So we brought in an Armagnac cask from Western France, Tawny Port from Portugal, and we aged it for over a year. We released it last year and quickly sold out. And I think that the big push for this product happened when we won this. There was an international whiskey competition where we won best micro distillery for the products that in the U.S. for the products that we sent out. And the star of that show was the Old Stogie.
Really?
Yeah, it did really well. But I always say I didn't submit them to win any awards. I submitted them because those type of competitions, you are put amongst your peers of whiskey blenders.
Right.
And in my humble opinion, the U.S. doesn't have what I say is very many true whiskey blenders. Right. We'll throw together some sources, whatever. Right. But, a lot of your pure blenders are over in Scotland, let's say. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to submit some products just to see how am I stacking up against those Johnny Walker awesome killer blenders of the world. Just give me a report card. A, B, C, D, F. Keep on trying, Brandon. I didn't know.
Yeah.
But we did pretty well there. But because of that, we just rolled out Old Stogie again about a month ago, and it's since sold out again. But I'm happy with the product. We'll keep on doing cask finishes. I mean, one of my goals is to have a back barrel room that just has a room full of all kinds of crazy different casks.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a blender, then I get the opportunity to, let's say I've got 20 different casks there. I can kind of pull together like a mad scientist creation of something unique and different. And that, as a person in the craft of blending, that's something that really kind of gets my juices flowing, thinking about being able to do something like that.
Absolutely. Because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this was a hit. I thought it was like, I thought it was cool. Here, try it. And then it was a hit. So you're like, oh, now I have to recreate that, or in the best way possible, recreate that, which is so cool. Like, because we all know that every Tawny Port barrel or every, Calvados barrel we get or whatever, it's going to be a little bit different. So like, you're never going to have consistency through your batching. There's no way when you're doing the blending and the types of things that you guys are doing, you're never going to have the, A to B is not going to be the same. You're going to have a little bit of difference. And the fact that you guys are like, okay, this was really good. This batch was really good. This batch, just that you were able to do that, like that to me, and that honey barrel, like, coming back from cancer and trying to get all the things back in line, the doctor said I could have honey because it's a natural sweetener. You don't have white sugar, right? Just don't eat white sugar. So honey to me, so I go to the local farmer's market, like you were talking about, and pick up some wild honey. It is like 10,000 times different than the honey you get off the shelf. Like it is so like not sweet, but it's sweet, but it's not sweet. That type of thing. I put a little bit in my coffee in the morning. It's one of those things. I'm not a purist. I don't want to drink my coffee black. I'm not Johnny Cash. Like, good Lord. But but at the same time, it's like the fact that all these beekeepers want to come to you and be like, okay, can you do something with ours? Because you made some amazing honey out of your barrels, which that in itself is amazing. So, like, I'm guessing you have a backlog of barrels you need to put whiskey in that have honey in them. Is that correct or no?
Well, no, we try to keep the process fluid because they
Right.
need the fresher the barrel's dumped, the more profound that flavor is going to show itself in the honey, which means a better product for them. And then immediately after they harvest it, we want to put bourbon in there quickly because we don't want the barrel to dry out. So we try to keep it fluid just to keep fresh is best. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so like when you're doing a honey barrel and a stogie barrel and a Armagnac barrel, and like, do you ever get like overwhelmed going back into the rick house or your storage area or wherever you have your barrels, and you're like, what do we have to dump today? Like, what are we doing today? Like, and what do I need to taste today? Because like, I mean, I hate that I have to go taste all these whiskeys, but it's my job.
Yeah, not many people are blessed to say that. I don't lose sight of that. So drinking is my job. But currently, we don't have the inventory where I get overloaded, like we're at thousands of barrels or, top in a couple of, we're not there yet. So, I am sampling on a weekly basis. I don't overdo it. I try to be pretty responsible about this. But I know I'm going to have a heavy morning or, what I'll often do sometimes is I'll just take little vials of the stuff and then sometimes I'll just go home and do it responsibly.
Right. Absolutely.
I know just depending on what's going on in the day, but I think the time of the day, where your palate is, that's key. You can't go eating a big old cheeseburger and some fries and then think you're going to be on point. So you definitely got the days that we're doing heavy tasting, sampling, I'll plan out my day accordingly, including my diet.
Right. And do you do like a lot of the blenders do? Do you take the sample, take it in your mouth, and then spit it out?
Can't say I do that. No.
Okay. No. I appreciate the honesty.
No, and I see why you would. I mean, I did do the funny story. We've done the whiskey somm program, which I must say I don't spit there either. But I did do the
I didn't either.
Makes for a long day, but I did do the intro wine sommelier program in Charleston, South Carolina once. But I'd already went through 2 or 3 levels of the whiskey sommelier program. So when I went there, I had the mindset that we're going to be drinking all day. Well, you get a big bucket at these wine sommelier certifications where you spit everything. And I remember we did our first flight or whatever it was, and I'm just like, yeah, sure. New age, old age, this, and this. And I look over and everybody else is spit. And this young, I'm dating myself, a 20-something-year-old bartender's like, dude, you drank all that? And I was just like, okay, so note to self, wine sommelier program's a little bit different. Yeah.
That's funny because I've talked to multiple people at this point. They're like, yes, if you do the WSET training or any of the other trainings that come with whiskey, spit the whiskey out because you're having like 50 whiskeys at one time. Like if you drink at least a quarter ounce of all those, you're talking 6-8 ounces of whiskey at one time. You need to spit it out. But it's one of those things like when I do like a tasting for like, okay, we recently, which by the time this comes out, it'll be long past, and I'm sorry, the Texas Whiskey Festival. And there's 30 distilleries. There's 30 distilleries that you go to, and you're like, try this whiskey, try this whiskey. If you don't spit out, you're going to be freaking hammered by the time you get to the end. So like how does a blending day go? Like when okay, you obviously don't have the barrels like some people do, but like, do you have to like pace yourself, and like just kind of be like, okay, I took a little too big a swig of that one. Maybe I need to calm down.
Yeah.
It's all about moderation, I guess.
Yes. And I would say that if I get to the point where I'm having to sample 50, 60, 70, 80 barrels in a day, for sure, I need to adapt, right?
Yes.
But if I'm looking, again, we're talking about our small batches in the single digits. So
Right.
if I'm doing 10, 12, I can plan out my day, my week. It's no problem.
Right.
Well, I need to scale that up over time and maybe adjust.
Right.
Absolutely. For sure. And there is that palate fatigue for sure. I was at a North Carolina ABC convention a month or two back, which the beauty about being in this industry is once you start wrapping up everything, all your colleagues are like, hey, try this out. Hey, try this out. You get to have a little fun for a while afterwards, but you got to watch that. It might be too much fun sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we try on this channel to strive for is drinking respectfully, not just responsibly, but respectfully. Like if you're like, hey, I'm done. I need to stop. Other people in your area need to understand that. So like, and it's one of those things where you have to find your limit and be like, hey, I'm done. But when you're going through a blending or going through something like that, you kind of got to pace yourself. And, like you said, if you're drinking a small sample of 9 barrels, that's not too big of a deal. That's like doing a small flight, like you can take that on. But at the same time, it's like you don't want to take it too far because then you get, like you said, palate blind, you blow out your palate, all that stuff. Yeah. So like, okay, where was I going? Sorry, I lost it there for a second. No, it's fine. So let's talk about the future. Okay. So where do you see Olde Raleigh? I don't even want to put it 5 years. Let's say 2 years. Where do you see Olde Raleigh?
Yeah. In 2 years, I'd like to think we're going to be in other brick and mortar states. You can order our product on our website in, I think, 39 other states now. Texas is one of them. And so that was our next stage of expansion last year. Okay. In 5 years, I don't know what that looks like. Here's what I would like for the market to at least know us as a owner operator, operation that makes quality products. And we've had a controlled growth strategy for a reason. I haven't taken private equity money or anything like that because I want to give you a quality product and I don't want to be pushed to being in 10, 20 states in 3 to 5 years.
Right.
But in addition to that, I want to give you something unique. And what I mean by that is, as we continue to make these batches, we're on batch 13 now. Right. Our batch 13 has 6 different straight bourbon whiskeys, 5 different mash bills. Where we're striving to go as a blend is by the end of the year, I want to be in double digits on that. Wow. And so when in doing so, I think that will put us in a different hemisphere, I think, than what other brands are. And I think we're going through a lot more steps to get that. There's a lot more costs incurred, logistics and things like that. But, part of me also wants to leverage this whiskey renaissance that we're in right now. I mean, we've got some really great craft distilleries around the country that. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting some static background.
No, it's all good. It started raining over here, of course.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, all right.
Yeah, it started raining over here.
But no, there's some great distilleries around the country now that are starting to roll out product that, and they've been around for a while. Mm-hmm. And so, being able to tap into some colleagues and being able to offer a different mash bill, straight bourbon, but create it and blend it with other things around the country and just give you something totally unique and continue to build upon that. Like, I'm a very visual person, so I'm thinking like, we're at batch 13, here's that bouquet of flowers. And what is something else I can add in to drop to really round it out for the next one? And that's where we're continuing to strive batch to batch. So continue to push the envelope with blending. I've got a personal goal to be, to blend all over the world. And so
Right.
just continue to network, and hopefully, 2, 3, 4 years from now, you might see a poster of me in Scotland next doing something unique.
Let's
And
go.
yeah, and just being able to venture and doing what I love around the world without constraints, and hopefully I do it well to where the consumer base supports what we are and what we're doing. And yeah, that's where I hope we'll be in a few years.
And I can tell you just from this batch, this little bit that I have left, like I'm so excited to see what you guys have for the future because there's distilleries out there like Cedar Ridge and Ben Holiday and all these guys that you could work with that are craft distillers, but they're doing amazing things in their field that you could get a barrel from them and like just kind of blend it in because they're all doing amazing things and putting it in your blend with some other things and just kind of showcasing the blending part of it to where like this is a cohesive blend that comes together like that to me is a huge deal. And I feel like that's kind of your backbone of what you wanted to do, like showcase the whiskey, but also like showcase each section of the whiskey. Like if you want to nerd out and try and pick out, like we were talking about earlier, try and pick out each individual, distillery that was in there or whatever. If you want to do that, that's great. But at the same time, just make a presentable product that like somebody can drink and be like, this is a damn good whiskey. That's all I care about, because you get those. You get the ones that want to geek out on it, and you get the others that just want to freaking drink, and they want to drink something that's good. And I feel like you guys are really showcasing that in the one that I have. And like we talked before, by the time this comes out, I will do a full review of a couple of other samples that Brandon has sent me, and then I'll be able to give you some of my tasting notes, which take those for what they are. Taste is so subjective, but I can guarantee you, if it's anything like this, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what you guys' future is because from what I'm seeing right here, it's pretty amazing.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel again blessed to be doing what we're doing. I think we've established ourselves a pretty good brand locally, and we're just continuing to try to get our name out there and push it. Yeah, man, blending is it's one of the best jobs in the world.
Absolutely. And for those of you that haven't figured it out by now, like get a couple of whiskeys and blend them at your house. Like I don't care if it's Wild Turkey and Jim Beam, blend them together and like try and make a cool blend out of them, because that to me is a big deal. And that's something that Brandon is doing at a large scale, but like he's creating a product that is unlike anything else you've ever had in this the whiskey realm, I think. Go ahead.
Can I offer a suggestion to that? I get that every weekend I'm giving tours. You always get that. Well, Brandon, what do you drink when you're not drinking your alcohol? And I always get that. But and this is true what I do. But I've got a nice collection at home, and what I do honestly is I'll take a particular brand, you throw one out there, and I'll say, okay, if I'm going to put my name on X, what would I do to it? And I'll spend the next hour pulling 4 or 5 different bottles together.
Okay.
But my challenge to whoever asked me that question is inevitably, if you've got a whiskey collection, you've got those 1 or 2 bottles that kind of sit on the shelf and you're like, man, that was kind of a mistake. And now look at those bottles and say, you know what can I do to blend that bottle to where I'd be happy to give somebody a dram of that? And that's going to be my challenge tonight. And if you kind of change the lens of how you're looking at your collection, now you're like, whoa, what can I do tonight? I had this boring set of bottles, and now it's like turned into a little party for myself here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so like for me, and this is just personally, I bought a bottle, and this is no disrespect to the distillery or anything. I bought a bottle of Johnny Drum. Don't ask me why I bought a bottle of that, but I did. And let's just say it's been a hard time getting through it. Like I have to mix it in a cocktail or something like that. So that's the challenge to me is to find a blend to where that's showcased, but yet it's not like, oh, it's thrown to the wayside. It's fine. It's just base note stuff, like to where it brings it out, but yet doesn't totally cover it up. So that's really cool. And I appreciate you coming to the listeners and saying, hey, here's your challenge. Find some whiskey that you might not have thought was the best and try and blend it into something that you're really going to like and you're going to appreciate, which that's kind of what blending is. Like when you blend barrels, and you can tell me all about this, when you blend barrels, like some barrels just aren't great, right?
Yes, you got what I say. You got studs and you got duds, right? and and the hope is that the duds will overcome the duds, right? If you're a bigger brand, you throw a couple hundred barrels together. Well, they all kind of even themselves out, right? You get that brand.
Right.
But yeah, with our small batching, if I'm very careful not to receive a dud because it's going to be harder to cover them up given our lower barrel quantity. But you always you're going to have more flavorful barrels than others. That's just how it is. That's the frustrating yet amazing art of whiskey aging. It's different, very different.
Absolutely. Okay, so any other things we need to talk about before we get off? Because I mean, I feel like we've done a pretty good thing for Olde Raleigh. Like I feel like we're where we need to be. You guys are blending some amazing stuff, and you're doing some cool finishes, and you're not afraid to finish, which like bourbon purists are all about, like pure. That's it. But like you guys are like ready to say, hey, we're doing a honey finished, and it's amazing. Maybe it's not what you're thinking it is, but this is an amazing whiskey. Like I don't know. That to me is a pretty big deal. Like,
well,
I don't know.
it's all for us. We know who we are. All right. I'm a blender, and I'm going to do products that I want to drink, and they may or may not be for everybody. Some people see the word blended on the label, and they're like, oh, I don't like blended whiskey. I just like straight bourbon. I'm like, well, fun fact, this is straight bourbon, but I'm just showcasing the art of blending. But I get a lot of requests for barrel picks, for example. That's really big in this neck of the woods. North Carolina is basically in Kentucky's backyard. So the standard is really high when it comes to bourbon, but also they expect some of the similar things that a bigger brand might have. And I'm just like, look, time out. We don't do barrel picks. I blend multiple mash bills, and we might do that down the road, custom blends. But by all means, go talk to them because that's what they're for. They've got millions of those barrels for you to choose from.
Right.
Blending operation here. But I really try to stick to who we are. And I guess in one instance, I've kind of went the opposite direction. We've got a whiskey club called the Olde Raleigh Whiskey Society. That it's a monthly membership, but I make bottles for a very small group every month. And it's a nationwide thing. But that gives me the creative freedom as a blender. Now that I'm going out into the market and I'm networking, if I find a very rare but small quantity of a product, like for example, here I've got this is a 23-year Canadian whiskey that I ran across. It was 168 proof in the barrel. We brought it down from Alberta. We've been aging it over 3 years. I've slowly cut it down to 142. We released it. We released only 70 bottles of it. Great whiskey. And then when we do the bottle release, we'll have an experience for those that can make it. And they did a flight where we did 142, 112, and 92 proof just to see how the water opens it up. But the great part about that was had I been constrained by, I need a couple hundred barrels to create this brand, to scale it, I never could have released something like that.
Right.
So my answer to that was creating this little whiskey club that we have. And we've been able to find some very unique things, a 23, almost 24-year rye, 20-year barrel proof, 98 proof bourbon, just a couple unique things. And we'll do some different cask finishes from month to month as well. But to the line of blending, this also gave me just kind of the other ultra hyper-focused ability to create unique things on a palette with a canvas with no constraints.
That to me is amazing. The fact that you're able to go from, you have no qualms on what you're doing. Like you just, hey, this is cool. Let's add it to what we got going on. Like that to me, it's so cool because there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I only need 10-year-old bourbon. That's all I want in this blend. Well, guess what? Not all 10-year-old bourbon is great. I'm sorry. So the fact that you're able to do all these minuscule barrels and like pull like small samples out of each one and add them to larger, like the fact that you're able to do what you're doing and create a product that is in the bottle from what I've tried is amazing. Like I don't know, it knocks my socks off, which I'm not wearing socks right now, but it knocks them off.
Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So if somebody wanted to be in your society, which is obviously running and gunning right now, how would they get a hold of that?
Just you go on your website. On the website, I think the top right says membership. You click on it, and then it takes probably about 30 seconds to sign up. So there's an in-state membership and an out-of-state membership. Out-of-state membership gets their bottles every 3 months. And the beauty about that is you get it once a quarter, but included with that is up to 3 additional bottles can be shipped for free. So if you go on our shop and say, hey, Brandon, I want 3 more bottles of that batch 10, we will purchase those, but they get a free ride to Texas. So
cool. And I will have all that in the description below for everybody to go look at. And if you guys don't know Olde Raleigh by now you do. These guys are doing some amazing stuff with blending, and I'm so excited for your future and the things that are coming out real soon. Any other social media you wanna put out there?
No, it's pretty straightforward. Olde Raleigh Distillery. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We do a weekly newsletter. If you really want to get the latest 411, my wife sends something out every Friday morning at 7, of which I get to read it when you do. She calls me a bit of a micromanager. So I get to see what's going on at 7 a.m. Eastern, just like y'all do. And she's not afraid to throw me under the bus because I do all kinds of crazy shenanigans sometimes. So.
Hey, it happens. It happens. We have to love our wives no matter what, unfortunately. No, it's amazing. And I appreciate you, Brandon, so much for coming on here and talking to us, and stick on real fast because I want to talk to you after. But yeah, no, I mean, if you guys don't know Olde Raleigh, I mean, if you haven't seen this bottle, like seriously, it is possibly one of the coolest bottles. For one, like just the bottle by itself is amazing. Let alone the juice that's inside it is knocking it out of the park. I can't wait to try it, and I will have those samples on the end of this. But yeah, no, I appreciate y'all, and you know what to do. You got to stay ready and keep your spirits up. Thank you.